Afternoon is Tom Marsh, the independent candidate running for governor here in the state of Connecticut. And welcome to the Norwich Bulletin. And let me start by asking you're a Republican.
In essence, I'm a conservative. How about if we put it that way?
Okay. So why take this route, the independent party route, and particularly when you're going up against two candidates that certainly are capturing an awful lot of the media attention. Both of them have become very well-known figures in the state. And I think it's a fair guess to say more than half of Connecticut not even sure who you are.
Oh, I would put that figure maybe even a little higher.
A little high. So why take this independent route for something that you are obviously sincere about and serious about?
Well, I think we're in a very dynamic time when it comes to politics and governance. Whether you're looking at the way candidacies are funded, whether it's millionaire funding or public financing, you're looking at, I think, wild swings in participation when you look at the 2008 election and what we're seeing now, a very low turnout in the Connecticut primaries. This dynamic time, I think, is going to shape how we see politics for the foreseeable future. And fortunately or unfortunately, the issues that we face now really are forcing us to get it right. So is this certainly an uphill challenge? It is, but I'm not ready to give in to the fact to say that in order to pick candidates and hear messages, we're going to open up checkbooks and see who has the biggest checkbook, or we're going to put resumes on paper and say, well, according to the resume, who could possibly be the best candidate? I think politics is designed to be a debate of ideas, and in an honest and open debate, all ideas can be heard and incorporated one way or the other into a form of governance. I think where we have been particularly shortchanged as the electorate of Connecticut is over the last couple of sessions where we've known that there are some very serious issues facing the state. We have had absolutely no legitimate dialogue from our elected officials. As a municipal leader, the first selectman of Chester, I've watched from the beginning of sessions to the ends of sessions where all good intentions are laid on the table the first 2-3 days of a session, only to get to the gridlock at the end to see on every vote the board light up straight Republicans or state Democrats. If it's a Democratic idea, the Republicans won't accept it. If it's a Republican idea, the Democrats won't accept it. And then we even got to the point where our Republican governor was arguing with her Republican constituency in the legislature. So we got government that was not representative, I don't think, of any of the wishes of the electorate. And I think that gets bore out when you see the overwhelming majority of people that are looking for term limits, yet that juxtaposed to the fact that the incumbents keep getting reelected, that it seems to be an idea that it's somebody else's elected representative that's causing the problem, but a general dissatisfaction in governance. As I started the race as a Republican, I had some very strong opinions. A lot of it has to do with the opportunity to preserve home rule in this state. But what I found in the process was in going to the town committees, that is the necessary road, you really had to adhere to the party line. Even within that, you're not hearing an open debate of ideas. The delegates that are going to come from those town committees are the hardcore believers in that party's ideology, Republican or Democrat. And I thought, if I'm here to bring ideas to a forum, I don't necessarily think that this process is going to work. Now, I had no intentions of running with the independent party, but I was contacted by them in March after a televised debate. Their comment to me was I sounded different than the other candidates in that debate. There were 7 of us, I believe, one night, and 6 of us the next night. I spent about a month getting to know them, and the party, the independent party, and me as a capital I independent candidate is much different than what we've seen as small I independent candidates, whether Lowell Weicker or Joe Lieberman being the most recent examples. The independent party has over 50 appointed and elected officials throughout the state. They have really, their genesis was founded on a dissatisfaction with governance in the communities they were in, and they've made a difference. My running mate, Cicero Booker, is in his 4th term as alderman, as an alderman on the Waterbury Board of Aldermen, and he's the minority leader. He's the minority leader because the independent party has more representatives than the Republican Party. And the reason they have that number of representatives is because they've made a difference, and it's been based on good ideas and honest politics. That has spread to towns like Newtown and Watertown and Milford, where The interesting thing is I found out more about the party. It seems like the first stage is the independent party gets formed and they're ignored. And then they start getting a little juice and it causes concern in the two major parties. And almost universally, whether it's been in the western side of the state or out here in Willington where the Sentinel Party, a minor party was formed, the Republicans and the Democrats come together and they start cross-endorsing each other's candidates. In fact, in Willington, in the last election, I believe they cross-endorsed every single candidate from first selectman on down, specifically to get the new player out of their sandbox. And that to me just proved the point that we're getting more about policy or party than we are about good government. So is the independent party something that's needed right now? I think it is. Is it something that's going to be needed for the next 10 election cycles? I don't know. I think it's going to be needed until the two other parties start understanding that we need government of the people, not of the party, and honest debate needs to take place. I'm not seeing that right now.
We've seen here locally several examples of that down in Montville. There's the Independence of Montville up in Canterbury. There's a group called Canterbury First, and they have had some success on the local level. But there is no unity with these groups here, and it has been a practice for those third parties looking to expand and become a force within the state to put as their primary objective is let's get the votes we need to guarantee ourselves a ballot spot so that we don't have to go through this petition. Are you the Trojan horse here or the sacrificial lamb trying to get that ballot spot? I mean, or do you, here's a tough question for you, do you really think you can win this? Do you think the electorate is ready to throw the Democrats and the Republicans completely out the window and elect someone other than a Laurel White or Joe Lieberman?
Well, there's a lot there. Now, yes, I believe I can win. Is it going to be easy? And looking at where I stand today, is it likely? It's not likely, but it's possible. What will depend a lot on my success will be whether or not my two opponents start acting civilly and discussing the issues instead of just throwing rocks at each other. I think the discontent in the electorate is growing based on the amount of money that's being spent, not to talk about the issues that we face, but about to say why one candidate is a bad person or another. I know both of my opponents fairly well, and I can tell you they're good people. Their hearts are in the right place, but their campaigns are being driven by politics. So it would be difficult, and I certainly have huge financial challenges, which I think have been brought about by some of the same policies that were supposed to eliminate those financial challenges. But yes, I think it's possible. Am I in it for the ballot status? That's part of it. I mean, that's part of when you define success. For me, success is not only winning the executive office. Success comes if some of my message gets incorporated into the debate of how we're going to follow these issues. Success also comes if I do get 1% of the vote, then there is a ballot line for the independent party for governor in the next election. If I get 20% of the vote, then the independent party becomes a major party. And everybody from dog catcher to president will have access to a ballot line. That's only for the next election. You have to keep the momentum going. But yes, there's certainly that there. As I put it, we're hitting the beach. Not all of us are going to make it to the tree line, but somebody's got to be willing to go out there. I think what makes me a little bit different is I'm a sitting elected official. I have a track record of success in elections. I've been elected as a Republican in a town that only has a 25% Republican registration. It's not all about party at the local level, which is one of the messages that I want to bring. Let's get more local involvement. So there are a number of definitions of success, but what I think we need to do as third parties is look more at the total picture of governance than sometimes many of these parties are focused purely on local issues. And once the issue goes away, the organizational structure goes away. Finally, what I'll say is in the last municipal elections, I did help residents in Chester form a third party called the Common Ground Party, specifically because they were tired of the political wrangling between the parties. In my dealing with the Secretary of State's office, there was no help in, and I'm not even sure there should be, but in putting us in contact with other third parties. It was like, well, if you want to do this, you have to start out on your own. If we would have known that there was an opportunity to form up with the independent party or any other party that may be out there, we may not have become the Common Ground Party. It may have been just a branch of one of the sitting existing parties.
You talk about the partisan politics of Hartford, and I agree with you that there's a big difference between the governance on a local level versus the governance that's taking place up in Hartford. Reasonably, you can expect that the Democrats will retain control of the General Assembly. Certainly, there's an air out there that the Republicans have an opportunity to capture some seats this year because of the anger and frustration, et cetera. So if you were to get elected governor, you're going to walk into Hartford with a revived Republican party, certainly not the majority,
Right.
not even close to it, but certainly feeling their oats, and a Democratic Party that is going to be breathing a big sigh of relief because they didn't lose their majorities, and just as confident, and or any other word you want to put in there, that they know the right way of doing everything. How does independent Governor Tom Marsh deal with those two factions? Because the governor can only do so much. If you don't have the legislature working with you, nothing gets done.
That's true, and I think that makes me uniquely positioned to move an agenda forward. Looking at the territories my opponents have staked out, particularly Tom Foley and his hard line on no tax increases, getting to the legislature and continuing the rhetoric is going to, in my mind, result in the gridlock we've had in the last two legislative sessions. I think what I'm going to bring is a more moderate approach. I think it's going to be easier for legislators to step to the middle of the aisle instead of across the aisle. And it's not going to take more than, say, 10 or 15 legislators to say, I'm going to break away from my caucus and start looking at solutions that are right for the constituency of Connecticut. I'm concerned that because of the situation you've described, where the one side's feeling their oats and one side's feeling a little bit of relief, that if it's a Democratic governor, they're going to be bolstered by the fact that they finally have a Democrat in the executive office and are finally going to be able to get things done, whether they're social and financial agenda, and it's going to be driven specifically on the Democratic premise, and the Republicans are going to be obstructionist. Conversely, Republican gets in, they pick up a few seats. I'm concerned that it's going to be a Republican agenda, and in my mind, I don't know how we fill a $4 billion gap without doing something to change our revenue structure, which means however you want to define raising taxes, some taxes are going to go up. And on a pragmatic note, the problems are so severe that I don't think any party wants to take ownership in the solutions. I mean, you can go back to the Weicker administration, and neither party wanted to be the one holding the bag and promoting the income tax. They were more than happy to dump that on the third party, and you know, as we see now, you know, the Democrats are saying that the whole problem that we have now is because we have a Republican governor, and the Republicans are saying it's because we have a Democratic legislature. So they're more than willing to shun responsibility, and if they can dump that on a third party, I think they're going to be more than happy to do it.
But then nothing gets done because now you have that convenient scapegoat.
Oh no, I think that they will unfortunately have to vote. Like Republicans will have to come along and say, well, all right, we'll go along with some of the independent leadership's positions on taxation, and we're going to have to, in my positions, I'm talking about broadening the tax base, getting rid of exemptions, and if necessary, increasing the upper marginal rates. I think the Democrats on the other standards that we're going to have to come part of the way, and we're going to have to get serious about reducing the size of government, restructuring departments, eliminating commissions, and working with union leadership to say you're either going to have membership or you're going to lose significant numbers of membership if you don't come around to a more acrimonious way of doing business.
When we started this conversation, you described yourself as conservative, but you just talked about the moderate approach that you would take to solving the problems. Where's the line between your conservative leanings and your moderate attempts at solving the problem?
Well, I think where the line gets drawn is between my conservative beliefs and what governance is. My conservative beliefs say I don't want government ruling my life. I want smaller government. I want less